Hello and welcome to the Horror Hangout, a podcast where film fans watch the best and worst horror movies of all time and have a lovely talk about them. But increasingly, we get to catch up with a few film creators and talk about their films that will be coming to your screens very soon. And this is just such an occasion. I am here today with Felipe Vargas, who is the director of upcoming film cinema release, Rosario. Felipe, how you doing?
Thank you so much for having me, man. I'm doing good. Excited to chat with you, with the horror fans out there.
Wonderful. And of course not your first rodeo in horror as well. Those folks who have been keeping eye particularly on shorts as well might have seen some of your previous horror entries, including Milk Teeth, which is one of my favorite horror shorts of the last few years.
I appreciate that, man. Yeah, that was really my first foray, big foray into horror. Although I've been doing it since I was a kid. I would tie homemade prosthetics to my dog that was the movie monster, or flood my parents' bathtub with fake blood, or kill all my cousins in my little camcorder films. So I've always loved it, man. But yeah, Milk Teeth was the one that really opened the doors, and now we're here, man. It's my first feature, Rosario.
Well, you've almost segued into what was going to be my first question before we talk about your new feature. What led you to choose of all the genres you could be making? What led you to horror? And obviously you've touched a bit on that already. A fan from growing up then, the horror bug bit you early.
Yeah, man. Since I was a kid, I would go to summer. I would spend summers in Colombia in South America, where my family's from, and my grandpa would, light the campfire and start telling us these stories of horrible stories to tell children of La Llorona, the woman who drowned her kids and now cries at night in the forest, or La Pata Sola, the woman whose leg was cut off when she was caught cheating and also roams the jungle. So there was just these like really graphic, creepy tales that would stick with me, and I would draw them. I would create like little sculptures of these legends and folk tales and monsters. So I think since I was a kid, I've loved these sort of. I've had like an affinity for monsters and creature design and effects, and that led to these early short films, just kind of playing with yeah, with these like they were just scares essentially, just little 10, 20 second scares. Um, but I think that really reflects in even this latest film, Milk Teeth. This just kind of passion for folk tales, myths, and legends.
Yeah, and you can really see it in there. I mentioned before we started recording, but for the benefit of the listening audience, I was lucky enough to see Rosario just today, earlier on. I'm sure people are going to have a lot of fun seeing it when it comes out, which is May 2nd if you're listening to the from the US. If you're one of my lot over in the UK, I believe that is May 15th that it comes out over here. Um, Obviously, check your own international folks. I can't list you all, be here all day. But it's so nice to see films like this get international releases. Let's talk a little bit about Rosario itself. So we see the synopsis here is a young professional woman gets a sudden call to visit her grandmother's house after she passes away to visit her apartment, and she kind of uncovers some secrets in their family history. We'll say no more than that now. But what led you to this story? Is this was it a legend that you were familiar with? Is it something that you came up with from scratch? Where did we begin?
Well, it's exactly that. It's about discovering, the secrets and the sacrifices that your parents and your grandparents made for you to be here today. And I connected with that deeply. It was Alan Treza who wrote the screenplay, amazing horror comedy writer. So I read his script. I thought it was hilarious, but also really emotional and really powerful. And I just related to that. I have, every time you talk to family, you learn a new thing or two. I have aunts who are mediums and some practitioners of some of these not exactly Palo, which is the culture we explore, but similar ones in Colombia. And I just knew that world really well. I knew that it can be scary, but also beautiful, like kind of a connection to your ancestors. So that blended with horror, it was just like kismet and fate. When I read the script, it was everything I loved in movies. And I had met with the producers years back. They sent me the script. They sent me the script years later, and it was just perfect. And I went all out. I gave them concept art. I gave them a sizzle reel. I just really showed them how I would approach this movie, and we were all aligned. We were off to the races from there. The other thing that was perfect about this movie was that they wanted to film it. It's a New York story. It's partially filmed in New York, but they wanted to film the bulk of it in Colombia, where I was born, where I'd heard these campfire stories as a kid. So it was just very full circle for me.
Sounds like the perfect match of talent to direct and tell this story then. And you already touched on it as well, but one thing I really enjoyed watching the film was not just the horror that we all turn up for, and we have some great physical, we have some great mental scares as well, but we also get a lot of emotional weight to the story and the connection with your family and elements of kind of the sacrifices and also the guilt maybe when you've drifted away from some of your family a little bit as well. Is that something you're really keen to really zero in on in the script?
Absolutely, my parents came to the States when I was very young, and I look at the sacrifice they made, losing their work, their friends, their family for a fresh start. That's really what this movie's about. It's about the sacrifice that our ancestors make. They say that we each have the blood of three generations in our blood, and we feel their trauma and their experiences. So that to me was scarier than any ghost or monster could be. Of course, we have a lot of monsters and ghosts in this movie, and it's still like a bloody fun ride. But beyond that, there was a horror that I think touches a little bit deeper, the kind of burden of those sacrifices that allow us to be where we are today. So it was something that I definitely wanted to explore in the film and just give it a little bit more heart, while still having this just kind of roller coaster bloodbath ride, a little bit of emotion, and meaning within that.
And it looked like you got to scratch your childhood itch of building those creature effects. You get a lot of effects work that you get in here. Lots of it looks incredibly like weighty and practical as well. Was that a lot of fun to work with?
Absolutely. I mean, I love, to me, practical effects makeup and creature effects and special effects. That's the heart of a movie magic. That's kind of the illusion of it all. Of course, sometimes augmented with VFX, but just to be able to build these creatures, to have hundreds and thousands of real worms on set, and to work with the designers of some of like the best movie monsters ever. That was like such a blessing. And we put a lot of detail and time and to create this sort of handcrafted, tangible feel to the film.
Wonderful. And I will do no spoilers and big reviews right now, but I would encourage all of our listeners to get on and see this when it comes out in the territory that you're in. I think you're going to have a lot of fun with it. Felipe, I couldn't do a podcast called The Horror Hangout without leaving you with one final question about you as a horror viewer. So imagine, if you will, you've got a group of your friends coming round for an evening. You're a horror director. They're going to put you in charge of what you're screening. What are you putting on for a mixed crowd for your perfect horror night?
That's a really good question. There's the easy answers, the ones that like most influenced me, Alien, The Thing, but something a little more niche, that I think could be really fun. Some of the Giallo horror films of the 70s, I think are like a really good time in a crowd. Suspiria, and there's a Jarodowski movie called Santa Sangre. I don't know if you've
Yeah.
seen it, but it's bloody, it's fun, it's basically circus horror, and it was actually a big inspiration for this one. So that I think that would be final answer.
Right, straight onto the watch list with that, everybody, as well. Felipe, thank you so much for spending a few minutes with us today. Thank you for everyone listening along. Go and check out Rosario when it hits cinemas near you. So that is once again May the 2nd if you're in the US, May the 15th if you're in the UK. If you're in a third country, I can't help you with that right now, but Google certainly can. Thank you so much, Felipe. Bye for now.
Thank you so much, Andy. Have a good one. Take care. Thanks for having me.